dug a hole about 2 feet across and 2 feet deep. They built a small fire with dried weeds. It was partially smothered to create a dense smoke. They used a wet blanket to interrupt the smoke and divide it into puffs. The smoke signals described the size of the invading party. The alarm signal was a long series of short puffs. The all-clear signal, a series of widely separated puffs. Because of their close allegiance and independence on one another, this ancient manner of communication by many of the tribes of Yokuts was very effective. It got the message where it needed to go in the speediest manner possible. Even in our modern age, isn't that still what communication is all about? From the writings of Kathy Rehart, this is Alice.
The Valley's legends and legacies are brought to you as a public service by the family of Bill Tathan Sr. for you to experience the value of history as a learning opportunity to inspire your success today and as a spark of your imagination for the future.
The man who was to become one of Fresno's most noted citizens was born in Illinois in 1849. His father had a mercantile business, and the young man was raised with a good knowledge of commerce. His father's death caused him at age 18 to go to work to support his mother and his sister. He was hired by a shoe merchant, Jacob Vogel, and eventually married Vogel's daughter, Anna. The young man began investing in trading sections of railroad land and prospered. Then he decided to head west with his wife and family, which now consisted of 2 sons and a daughter. In 1885, they arrived in Fresno. He purchased a large parcel of land south of the city, became the first area to be annexed by the city of Fresno. In 1887, he was hired for the position of a cashier at the First National Bank of Fresno. Within a year, he became the president of that institution. He continued to invest in land and subdivision projects in the Fresno area. In 1890, he and Jacob Vogel helped organize the People's Savings Bank. By 1895, he was one of the wealthiest and most prominent citizens in the business community. Through his advertisements for land, he attracted hundreds of investors to Fresno County. After his First National Bank merged with the Bank of Italy, he shifted his role to an advisory capacity. He traveled extensively until his death in 1935. The maxim by which he conducted his business life held true for him throughout his career. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise. It was typical life of Oscar James Wood. From the writings of Kathy Rehart, this is Alice.
The Valley's legends and legacies are brought to you as a public service by the family of Bill Tathan Sr. for you to experience the value of history as a learning opportunity to inspire your success today and as a spark of your imagination for the future.
The story of one of Fresno County's premier newswomen began in Purcell, Oklahoma. When not quite 16, she eloped with the editor of the Purcell Register. 3 days later, she announced that she would not be keeping house for any man. When her husband loudly protested, she marched into the back door of his newspaper and began to hand set tight. Her first beat was to cover the news at the Comanche Indian Territory, scouted her stories on horseback. Her biggest story was the opening of the Oklahoma Land Rush on April 22nd of 1889. She also served as the first female deputy of the U.S. Marshal. Her growing list of acquaintances included a number of outlaws, including Bill Starr, Two-Gun Charlie Smith, the Doolins, and the Daltons. Her childhood friends included Chief Partner of the Comanche tribe, and Geronimo, Chief of the Apaches. In 1892, she and her husband sold the newspaper and began a 20-year trip west to California. In 1919, they settled in Clovis, founding the Clovis Independent and Tribune. For the next years, Lucy Celia May Morris Case, simply known as May, continued her reporting career. With a pencil behind one ear, her straw hat firmly in place, and her notebook at the ready, May Case introduced Clovis to rival all the important efforts. In 1964, she was named Newspaper Girl of the Year by the California Press Club. Her death in 1967 brought to a close a colorful career. And for the citizens of Clovis, a loss keenly felt. No longer was their friend with a jaunty straw hat to be seen walking along the streets of Clovis in search of her next door. No longer would she wave and greet them by name. It was an era that had ended. From the writings of Kathy Rehart, this is Alice.
The Valley's legends and legacies are brought to you as a public service by the family of Bill Tathan Sr. for you to experience the value of history as a learning opportunity to inspire your success today and as a spark of your imagination for the future.
We live in an era of instant communication. As soon as the events happen, they are transmitted all over the world instantaneously via radio or TV or the internet. It may surprise some of us to learn that our local Yokut Indians had their own method of communication between valley tribes, and although it's not quite instantaneously, it was rather quick and effective. On April the 6th of 1899, John C. Fremont was traveling through the San Joaquin Valley. He noted in his diary, after having traveled 15 miles along the river, we made an early stop. Here we found the San Joaquin coming down from the Sierra in a westerly course. We had expected to raft the river and found a good forge and encamped on the opposite bank. Columns of smoke were visible in the direction of the Tule Lakes in the Southland, probably kindled in little areas by the Indians as signals that there were strangers in the valley. On one occasion, a party of Spaniards entered the southern end of the valley looking for Indians to capture to take to coastal missions. Within 4 hours, there were columns of smoke rising from one lookout station to another. Seems the Indians dug a hole about 2 feet across and 2 feet deep. They built a small fire with dried weeds. It was partially smothered to create a dense smoke. They used a wet blanket to interrupt the smoke and divide it into puffs. The smoke signals described the size of the invading party. The alarm signal was a long series of short puffs. The all-clear signal, a series of widely separated puffs. Because of their close allegiance and independence on one another, this ancient manner of communication by many of the tribes of Yokuts was very effective. It got the message where it needed to go in the speediest manner possible. Even in our modern age, isn't that still what communication is all about? From the writings of Kathy Rehart, this is Alice.
The Valley's legends and legacies are brought to you as a public service by the family of Bill Tathan Sr. for you to experience the value of history as a learning opportunity to inspire your success today and as a spark of your imagination for the future.
The man who was to become one of Fresno's most noted citizens was born in Illinois in 1849. His father had a mercantile business, and the young man was raised with a good knowledge of commerce. His father's death caused him at age 18 to go to work to support his mother and his sister. He was hired by a shoe merchant, Jacob Vogel, and eventually married Vogel's daughter, Anna. The young man began investing in trading sections of railroad land and prospered. Then he decided to head west with his wife and family, which now consisted of 2 sons and a daughter. In 1885, they arrived in Fresno. He purchased a large parcel of land south of the city and became the first area to be annexed by the city of Fresno. In 1887, he was hired for the position of a cashier at the First National Bank of Fresno. Within a year, he became the president of that institution. He continued to invest in land and subdivision projects in the Fresno area. In 1890, he and Jacob Vogel helped organize the People's Savings Bank. By 1895, he was one of the wealthiest and most prominent citizens in the business community. Through his advertisements for land, he attracted hundreds of investors to Fresno County. After his First National Bank merged with the Bank of Italy, he shifted his role to an advisory capacity. He traveled extensively until his death in 1935. The maxim by which he conducted his business life held true for him throughout his career. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise. It was typical. The life of Oscar James Woodward. From the writings of Kathy Rehart, this is Alice.
The Valley's legends and legacies are brought to you as a public service by the family of Bill Tathan Sr. for you to experience the value of history as a learning opportunity to inspire your success today and as a spark of your imagination for the future.
The story of one of Fresno County's premier newswomen began in Purcell, Oklahoma. When not quite 16, she eloped with the editor, Mr. Selmer. 3 days later, she announced that she would not be keeping house for any man. Her husband followed the protest. He marched to the back door of the newspaper and began to advertise. First people who tell the news of success in Indian territory. Scattered stories of horsemen. Ripping a story with the opening of the Oklahoma plant rush on the 2nd of 1889. She also served as the first female deputy of the U.S. Marshal. Her growing list of acquaintances was enough to Newspaper Girl of the Year.
Live on this is KMJ Fresno, 580 AM, 105.9 FM, a Cumulus media station. Thousands without power. I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News. More than 500,000 people across parts of Texas and Louisiana without power following severe weather that killed at least 7 people earlier this week.
in Houston. Fox Weather's Katie Byrne on the ground in Houston.
We know that cleanup crews worked through the night to get a handle on the situation here, but we're right around those high-rise office buildings and hotels with the windows totally blown out. And on the ground, you can still see signs of the damage. 100-mile-per-hour hurricane-force winds tore through the city, shattered office windows, and yesterday as the cleanup started, we had on and off rain as crews were rushing to board up a lot of these windows, clean up the glass and debris from the sidewalks and the streets. Thousands of people still without power, and some of them are worried about how they're going to get through the next week as we hit the 90s.
And officials warn the power may not be back on for at least another week. White House bringing largely silent on August arresting two Jordanian nationals accused of trying to breach a Marine base in Virginia.
Authorities have not identified who these Jordanians are. The White House and the Pentagon have been very reticent about the topic. Quantico is home to the basic school where all newly minted Marine Corps officers are trained. Quantico is also home to Marine One, which flies the president around. Right now, there is no evidence these two Jordanians are terrorists, but we know they are in the country illegally. In a statement, the base said the two men had no credentials allowing access to the base, and this is what happened next, according to a statement. Quote, the driver, ignoring the direct instructions of the officers, continued to move the vehicle past the holding area and attempted to access Marine Corps Base Quantico.
That's Fox's Lucas Tomlinson. The New York Police Department arresting a homeless suspect accused of punching actor Steve Buscemi in New York. Earlier in the week, the actor hit as he walked down the street in Manhattan. Americans listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcast Network.
I'm Emily Campagno, and this is the Fox True Crime Podcast.
And I had nothing to do with her disappearance, but people still accuse me of it.
I sit down with the people who lived the nightmares.
I was in shock. I was just devastated.
The investigators who tirelessly worked on the case.
I feel for their families, and I really hope that they can catch this guy.
Bringing you closer to the story than you ever thought possible.
Listen and follow now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. From the Fox News Podcast Network. Listen to the all-new Brett Baer podcast featuring Common Ground, talking to lawmakers weekly from opposite sides of the political spectrum about the issues of the day and how Americans can find common ground in a politicized world.
That's just not happening on Capitol Hill. It takes leadership, right?
Yeah, it actually does.
Along with all your Brett Baer favorites like the campaign, the candidates, the all-star panel, and much more. Available now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Find what you love what you find. So find more, so be waiting for. Here is sincere, thousands of lines, thousands of no's, prices so low, it just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love, and love what you find.
Only a Total Wine and More. Drink responsibly. Be 21.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
This is the newsreel of the air.
Hello there, side. Welcome to another Telestrain Radio Review. And now here's our master of ceremony.
Now, the Christopher Gabriel program on News Talk 580, 1059 KMJ, and streaming at kmjnow.com.
This is KMJ.
This is your 50,000-watt News Talk leader from Sacramento to the Grapevine to the Central Coast. 580, 1059 KMJ. It is the Christopher Gabriel program for the insiders. You are KGP. I am the host of the program. So glad to have you aboard this week. Man, we have a monster show for you. A little bit later on from CBS Sports, Tommy Tran will join us. From the Daily Beast, entertainment critic Nick Shager. A couple of segments this week with Nick. But first, one of my favorite people to bring on, he's a great guy. He is the founder of Ironstone Financial. He is an economist. He's a wealth manager. He's the smartest guy that I know in this area, and that's why he's on this program. He is Kent Owings up in Boise, Idaho. He joins us right now. Kent, it has been too long, my friend.
Yes, it has, Christopher. Thank you so much for having me back.
Well, it's great to have you. Let's talk about the economy. It's really simple. Where are we at right now? I mean, with the build-up to the election in November, is that going to contribute major swings, or will it just be something much less?
Ooh, right now we have the tale of two stories. And so the market has been growing to new highs yesterday, new highs today as well. A lot of that is due to inflation just flattening out. And we have CPI jargon, just what the Fed look at as far as inflation. So inflation stopped growing. It hasn't really come back down as much as we'd like to see. Now, central bank, he's not as aggressive as he has been. We have some verbiage that's coming out, and he's changing some of the language that he's saying that's more dovish, being less aggressive, and he doesn't care as much about some of these high inflation. So the market's responding really well to that. The market's growing, thinking like, hey, we're still expecting, they say 1.9 interest rate drop by the end of the year, which is 0.25% 2 times. I doubt that would happen before the election, because then the people would blame Jerome Powell for trying to manipulate the election if they drop before. There's a lot of expectations for at least 1, maybe 2 interest rate drops after the election, and that could drive the market to go up through the election.
Let me ask you about Jerome Powell. We're talking with Ken Owings, Chair of the Federal Reserve, as you mentioned. How much of what he does is testing and measuring? Because if it's testing and measuring and he tests and measures the wrong way, it affects everybody.
Oh, absolutely. So he has 2 commands. It's inflation and it's jobs. So that's why when the last jobs report came out, the market spiked, because jobless claims increased. So, and that's a double-edged sword, because then that jobless claims increasing shows a recession could be coming. We're also seeing consumer spending. It looks like it's growing, but it's not. Inflation is still higher than consumer spending, and that's over 70% of our GDP. That's over 70% of our overall economy. So a slowing of consumer spending actually shows we could enter into a recession. And so that's where it's weird to see the stock market continue to go and continue to be positive, but then there's other leading indicators that are looking pretty bad. Now, the central bank Jerome Powell does have 2 giant levers. We have interest rates. Just like he did in 2020, 2% on a Sunday night. He could drop that so fast, and all of a sudden consumer spending is going to go up again. Those first-time home buyers are going to just start buying homes, and they're going to just start racking up credit cards and buying more clothes. So I'm not really scared of a recession. If some breaks, they've got a big lever to pull that. I think we're not going to see any other catalyst for anything positive till about June 12th. That's when the next jobs come out. That's when Jerome Powell's going to talk again. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see those big companies keep making more money until then.
Well, if Ken Owings isn't scared about a recession, then I'm not. We are talking with the one and only Ken Owings, just a tremendous wealth manager, economist based up in Idaho. He's the founder of Ironstone Financial. I want to talk about gas prices here in California. Obviously, they are volatile. That's an understatement. Crude oil, there's always this cause and effect, right? Especially with events like Ukraine and Gaza. Stuff rises, stuff falls. Wholesale prices, they impact retail prices. Both will generally rise together, but what I've noticed is that they don't really fall together. We've certainly seen that. The price this week has gone as low as $76 a barrel. You and I are talking on Thursday. Today was $79 a barrel when I got off the air. Why are retail prices so slow to drop when you will see the price of oil barrels drop?
Well, this is why California is more sensitive to that than any other state in the U.S. And so they've kind of pinned themselves in a corner, because in California you have higher taxes on gas. There's an additive that nobody else has, especially in the U.S. Now it's not, so there's increased expenses on that as well. But the biggest has been the slowing of the refinery, so not making your own gas, and then putting so many restrictions on new refineries come in. So now, it's almost it's created their own monopoly. There's so few of them that they can do whatever they want. And so
And then that was one thing I don't agree with, that Newsom just created more restrictions. That, hey, I'm going to use my price gouging, so now they're put into this tighter box. So just to protect themselves, the refineries didn't have to be slow to move the gas prices back down. So here's the box you put me in. I'm going to stay at the edge of this box because I can't increase, if oil prices increase too fast again. So I'm going to hold on and build up some profits within this box that you built for me, and I'll drop them when I absolutely have to stay inside your rules. But the free market is not at play, so it cannot move as smoothly as the rest of it does. And so even though you're seeing the oil prices go up and down, the refineries are still trying to control and protect themselves with that movement as well. And then supply and demand, economics 101, so anything going on in the Middle East always affects oil prices. Any constraint of production or shipping, that's going to affect it. And that production and shipping were greatly affected.
Ken, it seems like Governor Newsom, it seems like he's trying to walk the line between being environmentally correct and at the same time making sure that prices can not necessarily adversely affect the state, but he's doing a bad job because people here are getting killed with this.
Yeah, I would say, I like the intent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't like price gouging. I don't like price gouging.
Right.
So intent is spot on, but then just how the free market works, it just didn't work.
No, you're absolutely right. We're talking with Kent Owings, economist, founder of Ironstone Financial, just a great group up in Boise, Idaho. Last thing for you, we have a couple of minutes here. So China has come out and said they are firmly in opposition of the $18 billion of new tariffs on...
To pick him up. Oh, great. He has been working with them, on the schedule, I said, oh, great. Oh, I was afraid of that. Oh.